Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about some of the technical terms used in proscenium arch theatre. I hope to present a healthy selection of terms, although this is not a complete guide. So let's begin with the performance space, or stage. In a pros arch arrangement, the audience is seated on one side of the stage, with the other three being devoted to cast and crew access. Depending upon the design of the auditorium, or house as it's often known, the stage will either be flat or sloped towards the audience. The technical term for such a slope is a rake. The gradient of a rake will vary from theatre to theatre. In venues that have a flat stage, the audience will be raked or tiered. The aim with most rake designs is to improve the view for the audience. It seems to have been this raked stage design that gave rise to the positioning terms upstage and downstage, although these terms no longer refer exclusively to a pros arch layout. The stage is typically divided into a 3x3 grid. Each square is given a name to describe its location. These acronyms can vary, but their general meaning is the same. For instance, USL means upstage left, CS means centre stage, and DSR means downstage right. Stage left and right refer to the actor's perspective, looking out at the audience, thus why left and right appear to be the wrong way around on this diagram. Wider stages can be divided into a 5x3 grid. In this case, the letter E, standing for extreme, may be added to describe the outer columns. Another system of naming the stage sides calls stage right opposite prompt and stage left prompt side, referring to the location of the prompt desk in the wings. I'll leave the role of prompt desk for another video. There is more to the job than the name suggests. However, the prompt desk is nearly always situated in the stage left wing. In the event that it is moved to stage right, I believe that the OP and PS labels do not switch around. Instead, the term bastard prompt corner is introduced. Onto the proscenium arch itself, the pros for short. This construction creates a frame around the action on stage and separates the audience from the actors. This arrangement is one of the easiest to work with, as the production only has to look acceptable from one side. However, this type of stage can result in unnatural positioning and movement of actors, which must be accounted for during the rehearsal process. Perhaps the worst example of this would be having the actors simply walk to a point on stage and then not moving at all until their exit. That doesn't mean that you should never keep a character still, but there should always be a deliberate reason behind it instead of just lazy blocking. Another drawback of pros arch stages is that the audience can feel alienated from the performance. The pros itself creates an invisible fourth wall through which the audience watch the show, but the actors can't always talk through and thus break this wall, otherwise the performance can start to look unnatural and forced. In theory, the pros arch design allows for the maximum amount of space for set pieces, actors and equipment to hide unseen, thus allowing a great level of flexibility in a production design. A side note, the word proscenium comes from the Greek... Okay, I'll try to pronounce it, but don't laugh. Proscenium. A literal translation from Greek means foreground. Greek theatres didn't tend to have proscenium arches as we know them. The word proscenium referred to the stage itself, which was in front of the background, just as the pros arch is in front of the stage. Moving on, we come to the apron, a term which refers to any area of the stage that extends in front of the pros. The main difference between an apron and a thrust stage is that the audience is still only seated on one side of the stage. Hidden behind the pros are the wings. These are an open space on either side of the stage where actors, props and set pieces can wait out of sight. Quick costume changes may also take place here if an actor doesn't have time to get back to their dressing room. The controls for the flying system and revolve are also situated somewhere either in or above the wings. Now, I'll come back to the revolve later, but the mention of the flying system allows me to move on to talking about the fly tower. There's quite a bit more to a pros arch stage than meets the eye. Above the stage there is a large space occupied by the flying system. We'll cover this topic in more detail in a later video, but the basic purpose of a flying system is to facilitate the quick and easy, relatively speaking, addition or removal of cloths, props and set pieces. It also houses the LX, or lighting bars, that are suspended above the stage. To hide all this space and equipment, a set of strategically placed curtains are used. The vertical ones masking the wings are called legs, and the ones that are hung horizontally above the stage are called borders. They mask the flying and lighting systems. In some theatres, a third set is hung at right angles to the legs. These are called tabs, and they mask the wings in houses where the audience is seated at such a wide angle that the legs alone won't do the job. Going back to the legs and borders for a second, I should mention that these are not always made of fabric. They can be made of wood, in which case these whole constructions are called portals, which can be utilised as decorative frames. My apologies for not redrawing the borders on this diagram. Portals do, I think, replace both the legs and borders. Here I forgot to redraw the latter. Next we come to the large black opaque drapes that cover the width of the stage. The research I've done says that these are called backcloths. However, in practice I've never heard them called this name. I've only ever heard them referred to as blinders, and as this isn't as easy to confuse with the name given to another theatrical cloth, more details coming up, this is the name I will give them. They are used to block the audience's view of anything upstage of them, regardless of the lighting setup. Frequently, they will be used to hide the back wall of the theatre, but can also be moved further downstage to mask a scene change. A substitute for a blinder is to use a star cloth with its lights turned off. A side note, a star cloth is a blinder that has either LEDs or fibre optics sewn into it to produce bright specks of light. Backtracking a little, another way to hide the back wall is to hang a cyclorama in front of it. This is a white, flat or concave curtain which can be either lit or projected onto, suggesting scenery or sky. Some theatres may bring their cyc, to use the short term, downstage, allowing the venue to double up as a cinema, filling gaps in the schedule when there aren't any shows in. Another way of indicating scenery or location is to fly in a backdrop. This was the term I was trying not to confuse with backcloth earlier. A backdrop is a painted curtain that can be used to complete or complement a set. In some productions, a location may be visited only briefly. A complete set change would be overkill or even totally impractical for such a short scene, so a backdrop can be flown in by itself to give an indication of location. A variant of the backdrop is a cut cloth. These are usually made of the same material, perhaps incorporating some gauze as well. I'll explain gauze in a moment. However, instead of covering the width of the stage, the cloth has been cut to a desired shape. They can be placed downstage of a backdrop to enhance the setting by producing a layered effect. I realise this diagram is getting quite crowded. There isn't much more to go. A gauze is a thin cloth which when lit from the front appears opaque, but when backlit becomes transparent. These can be used to make a character suddenly appear on stage in a spotlight, instead of having them walk on. Next we have the revolve. Okay, stop laughing. Revolves are not usually shaped like potatoes. A revolve is a circular turntable that facilitates quick scene changes by spinning the set around. As far as I know, these only exist in flat cross arches. If you know of a raked revolve somewhere, do leave a comment. And finally, for this video, we have the house tabs, although in some theatres they are referred to as the grand curtain. They are hung immediately behind the cross arch and are often used at the start, end, and sometimes interval of a production. Some are flown in vertically from a flying bar. Others part in the middle and travel horizontally into the wings. In fact, there are quite a variety of ways to set up and operate them, but they all perform the same function of presenting a fourth wall and hiding the stage. There are many more points that I could go into more detail about, however this video is long enough already. If you know of any other technical theatrical terms used in prosarch theatre, feel free to leave a comment. As always, take care, and we'll catch you later.